Well, these are about all that's left from the tomato crop. These are a variety called Shimmer from Burpee. I liked them. Good cherry tomato. And we had a great year for tomatoes, but it's over early because of Septoria leaf spot and early blight. If you still have tomatoes left and they're in various shades of pinks and reds and maybe even still green, pull those tomatoes off, put them in a bag, put them with an apple. That apple produces ethylene gas and they will ripen slowly. Some years I'll be picking tomatoes off here at the end of October, and then we'll have them all the way into Thanksgiving and Christmas. Not this year, just because it's just been too wet, and you can see nothing's left of these vines. It's a sad day because we're going to be pulling the tomato cages out. I remember starting the season and putting them on, how exciting it was. But these vines are not going into the compost. These are going into their own little weedy area because we don't want to perpetuate those diseases by adding this to the compost. So let's start our garden breakdown by taking out some of these cages, storing them, and what's going to go in here next, and not today, is going to be tulips. This is a no-till gardening area, and that means that once these are out, the tulips go in. They'll come up next year. When they're done, tomatoes go back in. Now, normally we rotate our crops, but this is the only place I have that has enough sun for tomatoes. And last year I added manure and compost. I'm going to do the same thing this year, so that I'm assured to have a great tomato year. So down go the cages and into storage, but first, how about a Shimmer tomato? Whoop, that was easy. Well, it's always fun to find a toad in the garden. When I was tearing the cages out, this little guy was hopping around, and he's going to eat up whatever slugs are left. Well, what's interesting is the tomato least affected by the diseases is one called Limbaugh Legacy Potato Top, an heirloom that I give away. That's good to know, and there's just something about the smell of this foliage as we're tearing it up that is special. You know, the aroma of these tomato vines is something special. Let go. So for tender crops and annuals, those things are getting pulled out as the season progresses. Normally, I wait until frost. A lot of people will go a little earlier before things turn to mush. It's important to get all this old foliage, whatever you're pulling out of the garden, get it out of the garden because this is where pests and disease can overwinter. Let me show you some stuff that we're not going to mess with, not going to pull out, and not going to close up. So in the perennial garden here, we're not touching a thing. They used to teach us, cut it all down, make it look pretty. I never did it, not because I was, helping the beneficials or the butterflies or whatever. I just did it because I was lazy. But the reason that we're not cutting this stuff down is the seeds will be good for the birds. There's habitat for beneficial insects. As I said, you leave leaf litter on here and the butterflies will be laying their eggs underneath. That's all stuff I learned from my radio partner and fellow Trib columnist, Jessica Walliser. And that's one job we don't have to do. All right, let's keep working. Well, you know what a nut I am about planting bulbs. I'm going to continue to plant until the ground freezes solid. But sometimes, something like a crocus, the chipmunks will go after them. They think they're nuts. And I learned a great tip from my friend Brent Heath from Brent and Becky's Bulbs to spray them with some repellent. And I'm going to use my Bob-X. And that's why I'm wearing gloves, because I'm going to mix them all up. And I don't want to smell like Bob-X all day, but I probably will. So all we're going to do is put a little bit of this Bob-X on here. As I said, whenever I talk about Bob-X, it smells. And that's what keeps everything away. And I've had great luck with this as long as I spray it. The problem is if I let a plant out there and the deer like it or something else likes it and I don't spray it. The mosquitoes are bad today. All right, we're going to get these in the ground. I think we're in pretty good shape. Most of them are covered. Let's get them planted. And last spring I wrote on my garden journal, more crocuses here. And that's what we're going to do. We have a special spot for them. And hopefully they'll stay chipmunk free. There is nothing like the beautiful blooms of crocus in the spring, because they're always a surprise. Even though we know we planted them here, they will be a surprise because it only takes a couple days of warm weather to get them to sprout. And there's a certain excitement for a bulb nut like me putting these in the ground. All right, I'm going to finish this up, and then I've got something very special to show you. Well, one of the great things about being a gardener are the people that we meet. And I've been working for a charity called Change a Heart for over a decade. And every year I go to their gala. And about 12 years ago, I was acting as a celebrity bartender. And I went back into the kitchen. I started talking to the nuns. And somehow we got onto the topic of garlic, as you know, one of my favorite things to talk about. And they wondered if they could grow it in their garden. They have a little house in Millvale. So a couple weeks later, I got some garlic bulbs and I brought it down and we planted it, and I did a story about it, and they just loved it, you know, planting now and then harvesting in July. Fast forward to over the weekend, I was the MC of this year's gala, and every year I've given Sister Trudy a couple bulbs of garlic to plant, and she's planted them and harvested them, and they love it. Well, when I gave her the garlic this year, she said, I have something for you. Because the sisters are moving. They're all moving to kind of a big new assisted living type place. And she had this for me. This is out of her garden. It's a beautiful garden ornament of St. Francis, who is the patron saint of all living things, including stuff in the garden. And I just thought that was the sweetest thing. And as I said, it's the thing I love about being a gardener. And now we just have to find a place to put it in the garden. And I'm going to start right up front here. All right, let's finish up. If I put it here, I'll see it every time I walk out into the garden. See if we like it there. We might move it. Check me out online. That's where you can find lots of other gardening information, stories, videos, and you can post your pictures there. I would love to see your garden. You can join my Seed of the Month Club there and find out how to come to Italy with me this spring. Till next week, lots to do out there. More cages to pull, things to put to bed. We'll see you then.